Hello everybody, here we are today doing our final season preview, and in this one we're talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets, how they'll get through this season. This is going to be different than any other season preview, as I'm going to try to respectfully talk about this team after the recent passing of Johnny Gaudreau, and this is going to be kind of hard. We're going to kind of ease on into this and talk about how the season ended for the team last year, as they finished with 66 points and failed to make the playoffs. This was a bad season, but still an improvement from the season prior to that, as they went from 59 points to 66. And a lot of people were hoping that maybe they could take another step forward this year. But then about 3 weeks ago, Johnny Gaudreau passed away, and the talk has certainly been centered around that. And this is why I think especially this team is going to have such a hard time focusing in on the year. Totally understandable too. So with that kind of all being brought up, what are some storylines to talk about for this team? Again, in a very respectful way. So the first storyline is talking about how will they deal with the loss of a teammate and a friend. Johnny Gaudreau played for this side for a bit here and was a player that really did seem likable from not only his teammates, from other players around the league too. Just a good player, a good teammate, a good friend, a good, father, all that stuff. Now he's gone. And this is something where I talked about before. It feels like it's going to take a long time to really process this and understand that this is reality. And you wonder exactly how things will go for this side as they've dealt with the loss of Gaudreau. And then previously Matiss Kivlenieks not that long ago. This is where you wonder exactly too what the toll will be on the players, as you have a lot of guys that had to experience the loss of him and then Matiss. And it's just going to be a hard season to get through. 82 games where you're probably not even really thinking about hockey, especially early on in the year. I'm hoping that in a lot of ways, maybe this can be a distraction for guys where they can play and then maybe get some joy out of this and say, well, Johnny would have wanted us to be happy, so we're going to try to go out there and play with a passion and a love for the game. But I also understand too that you might go out there and see guys that want to take time away from the team, and then you also might see guys that just say, hey, things have been so rough for us over the past few years. Maybe I've had to deal with the loss of Matiss and Johnny. I just want it for a start in a new environment where I don't have to be around it as much. That's totally understandable as too. I know some people will be on their high horse and say, these are millionaires that are playing a game. They're going to do as I say, yada, yada, yada. To that, I say, grow up, get real, and understand these are human beings that have had to deal with the worst aspects of life. And that, of course, is losing a close friend. And that is going to be something that probably never will, again, heal. But you understand, too, this could be a cathartic season for them trying to process their grief. And I would say that I really would love to see the older guys kind of step up and take that role to help out those younger guys and just help them go along this season as they're getting used to the NHL, but also dealing with something they may have never had to deal with before. But also I understand too that for a lot of these veteran guys, it's got to be very hard to be a leader when also you are dealing with grief yourself. So I just want this organization to really come together and try to have the best year possible. Not really in terms of results, but just in trying to get into the right spot mentally. I think we all kind of understand at this moment, this season is kind of a throwaway season. It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because obviously of what happened here. So it's okay if they have a bad season on the ice. It's more about what happens off the ice for the team. Now the second storyline is kind of shifting more towards the team play, and this is how can they help out their goalies. Last year for Columbus, they were a pretty bad defensive team. They were bad at 5-on-5. They were not great on the PK, and they had 19 games where they allowed 40 shots or more. They also had a game where they allowed 51 shots against the Colorado Avalanche. As you can expect, they were up there with teams like San Jose when it came to allowing a lot of goals. It was not pretty in a lot of ways, and I think this is going to be a big year too. You've got Daniil Tarasov that is going to be getting starts in net. You want to be able to protect him a little bit. We're also trying to help out Elvis. I know Elvis is requesting a trade, but it's not necessarily like he is a malicious player. He's just had a lot to deal with over the years and just wanted out, I think, in a spot right now where his career is not going the way he would have wanted. You want to be able to help these players out because anybody that's facing 40 shots or more is not going to be able to produce the results you want unless they are a top-tier goalie that is elevating the team. They really are just making things a lot harder for the goalies. Now, kind of something that I would say is interesting here is David Jiricek maybe getting more minutes this season. His numbers actually looked pretty good last year compared to a lot of the other defensemen, and I think it'd be interesting to see a player that was drafted as high as him go out there and get more minutes. He didn't get too many last year. I don't even know if he averaged over 15, 16 minutes a night, somewhere around there, maybe even a little bit less. He doesn't have to go out there necessarily, say, play 23 minutes, but just to help out the blue line a little bit more. And I know that might seem a little bit contradictory to talk about how you want to be able to help out your goalies a little bit more, but then also giving defensemen, especially young defensemen, an expanded role. That kind of seems odd, but again, this season was not expected to be a year where there was a high end in terms of being competitive. It was more about development and growth and all of these things. And I would just say for now, yes, you want to get better, but I think at the same time too, you understand you can kind of teach the fundamentals about what you were doing right and what you were doing wrong, while also giving those young guys an opportunity to try to help out their goalies. I will be kind of curious to see if we have another season where they flirt with 20 games where they allow 40 shots or more, because again, you're just not going to win that way unless you're able to be a top 5 team, top 3 team, maybe even the best team in the league when it comes to scoring goals, something that Columbus really isn't at the moment. So the third and final storyline is hard to pin down, but it's talking about whether or not there are some true positives that they can have by the end of the year. Columbus, if you're looking at just the on-ice product, has been a team that's not been very good for 4 seasons now and has seen players that have left, whether that's, free agency or getting traded. And some of these are big-name players. Obviously, Jarmo Kekalainen is going as GM. They made that decision, but there's been a lot of transition and turmoil and head coaching changes in recent years for this side. And this is an organization that during the mid to late 2010s really did feel like they were in probably the best spot they'd ever been in, and now they're in a spot where they are looking really, really bad, and there might not be a quick and easy way out. And I kind of see that as a problem, because if guys aren't there, they don't want to be there, and then you just have some other issues to deal with, like the market not being super inviting in terms of some other cities. Comes talked about before, Columbus might not be that prime location for guys to go in free agency. That is going to be much, much harder to try to make this team competitive. That might be where you go out and see the side offer players more money than maybe they're worth, because they are trying to find that difference maker and know they might have to open up their wallet just a little bit more. And that's why I do think that in some ways the season actually is still kind of important, but more about a statement about this organization is in a good spot with the rebuild and the development and whatnot, because if things go bad again this year, if there are some positives, you can at least say we are building towards something, and maybe you're able to bring in some other guys that feel like there is a vision and there's a direction and things are going to be going that way rather soon. That is kind of where things could go. But I think at the same time too, we talk a lot about how these younger teams, they had, 4 out of their top 5 guys that were 20-something years and younger score 20 goals for the team next year, so they're going to be better. Is that necessarily true? Probably not all the time, again, when a team is not even hitting 70 points on the year. In Columbus's case, I just think that if things, again, kind of get stuck in the mud, this could be a rebuild that takes a long time. And we've seen from other teams around in the league, Anaheim, Buffalo, etc., that it kind of seems that there are teams that can't get a rebuild done in a reasonable amount of time. And for Columbus, this could be a long-term problem. And I think, again, with them being in a spot where it's not Miami and it's not LA, it's going to be hard to try to get back to being that uber competitive side that could possibly win a round or 2 in the playoffs. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Columbus Blue Jackets? Well, they are a side that has a lot to process for this season. And I think that one thing that kind of hurts this team is they don't have John Tortorella there. And this is one of those coaches that kind of can be loved or hated. But I think in this situation, really with the connection that he had with some of those guys back in the day, would have been a great head coach to have. Instead, they have a new head coach in Dean Evison. And I'm not saying that there's any knock on Evison at all or anything like that, but it's just going to be hard for him to try to build a relationship with a lot of these players and then also try to keep this season on the rails for them. And it's going to be one of those deals where you understand that the first year for him and the team isn't always going to be important. And I think that's going to be something that in the first year especially, you can kind of accept and understand a little bit more. We are still looking at this and feeling weird. I was really hoping for a rebound year from Johnny Gaudreau and getting excited to see how good of a year it could be for him. And instead, we're just never going to get to watch him play again. And that's something that we've talked about already that is just hard to imagine. So I don't exactly think that this is going to be a season that is filled with a lot of smiles and a lot of all that. But I am still hoping that there can be some positives for the year on and off the ice and just be something where you know that Johnny would be proud of his teammates and happy about the year. So overall, what are your thoughts about the Columbus Blue Jackets? What do you think are going to be some of the trials and tribulations for this team this season, strictly about hockey? And let me know all those stuff down below in the comments. With that, I'll say I don't really know how to end out this video, as I usually end out my videos in a certain way, which kind of feels inappropriate in this context, talking about everything in the season preview. So with that, I'll just say, Johnny, we really miss you.